So I'm back, and today we're going to do a rant of the week. And today, what we're going to talk about is the differences in between Hasbro now and Hasbro then. And when I go Hasbro then, I'm going back to the Beast Wars. I'm not, and up. I'm not going to go into G1, G2 while talking about this discussion because, I mean, G1, yeah, it had its faults, but it really was the best of the lines when it comes to quality. Hell, figures for diecast. Come on, I mean, there's no comparing the two. Yeah, there's a few things that were a little wonky, but at the time it was awesome. Now, I think part of the problem now, as opposed to then, is as I get older, I'm sitting there looking at figures that came out then. Beast Wars, for example. Their figures were awesome. I thought. They have their faults, no question there. And then the show Beast Wars started grabbing these characters to make into the show. So they altered the characters to make them more show friendly. So that's why the figures didn't quite match the cartoons. Now, I can't excuse it. When they throw Alpha Bravo into Superion, it's strictly to sell a toy. I mean, there's no excuse for not putting Slingshot in the first set. I mean, none. Sorry. Even there's so many things different. I mean, this is a really hard rant to do because it's so, things are so different. Let me grab my phone here real quick because somebody posted on one of my last rants and that they suggested doing this rant. So I think he had some points that he wanted me to point out. My little brother has his dogs over here again, and it's getting pretty irritating. Anyway. Sorry, I should have had this together. Let's see here. I'd like to see you do a rant on Hasbro then and now on quality, prices, size, chug, and MP line, etc. You could also mention the lack of lights and sounds, paints, complexity in the modern leader figures. The RDN line is garbage and overpriced, lighter plastic compared to the Universe line, and lack of focus on figures that we've been wanting but never got. Maybe you could also do a second rant of the week on then and now versus third party in general. Just a suggestion. Okay, so we'll wait on the third party ones. So, first off, I'm gonna defend Hasbro on this one. The lights and sounds, electronics, and stuff like that in a Transformer, not having them in the leader class figures is a good thing. The leader class figures now, and this is one of the few times I'm on Hasbro's side, as opposed to past Hasbro. Because, okay, so take Optimus Primal. He was Ultra, which was too big. Then he was Voyager, and that was great. And then he was this Supreme class, which was, at the time, leader class. And he's huge. He has lights, he sounds, all this stuff. And they make that figure before they made the toy, or before he showed up in the cartoon. So they shoehorned him into the cartoon to make it work, and he's huge. He's absolutely massive, and it isn't very good in the show. That was one of the things I really didn't like, was just having that primal so big, because they just needed to find an excuse to get him knocked out. Other lines had, the Supreme Class. Let's take a look at Supreme Class Cheetor from Beast Machines. You sit there, you look at that, and you go, why? Just why? Why would that be there? The original RAD line had a Supreme Class Blast Punch Optimus Primal. Again, why? It's way too big. It's out of scale. It doesn't work in the collection anywhere. And that goes on and on and on like that. Just, you sit there and you find these figures that are so big that you sit there, it's like, why is this here? And that held true all the way up until recently, when they downsized the leader class figures. So they downsized them. Yeah, they didn't downsize the price. They're still about the same price. But they downsized the scale and they cut out the electronics. For a great example is the leader class Jetfire we got not too long ago. In the Generations Classics line, he actually, I would say he actually scales perfectly now. If he was the old leader class size, he's too big. Yes, there's also the issue of it being super hollow and not really worth $45, but that goes into the price, the rising cost of plastics, and them trying to cut corners wherever they can so they can still make a profit. Like I was saying yesterday, it goes into, it's just one of those, because the Generations line is a secondary line to them. You can see it, you can feel it. They don't care. They care about the main line, the one that they're trying to sell to the kids, the RID line, which is crap. So I'm remembering back. One of the main things I really loved about the Beast Wars line is the different price point on figures. So you have the basics figures. Let's see if I can one over here. So you have a basics figure. So this is the size of a basic figure. So it's, let's see here. Yeah. Where is a good deluxe? Oh, 1 second. Alright, sorry. I just want to grab a few figures here. So, here is the current Legends class figures. These sell for $10. Or, I've actually seen them go up to about $15. Here is the original Beast Wars basics. Big difference here. Yes, he's got more plastic to him. He's got a little bit more heft, not too much. When these guys were first out, this was $5, like $4.95. $4.95. There's not even a question which one's better. I mean, the Legends is cool. I like the Legends. There's some of the Legends that are out that have come out that are really cool, but this was $5 for this much of a better quality figure. He's got more joints. He looks better, and they kind of scaled an entire army together in this, and they released tons of these guys, not just repaints of each other. They did have the repaints, but they released tons of these guys. Yeah, I'm just looking over here. This is the same line, the same exact line here that we're talking about. So you see, $5, $10 figure. Same line as the drill bit. So I mean, they just were blowing them. They blow them out of the water. They also had the deluxe size figures at a $10 price point, which was pretty cool. I guess Hasbro decided that deluxe sell the best, so they stuck with that. But real quick to show this off, this is probably one of my favorite, Beast Dwarf figure, and it's Man-Terror. And here's First Aid. So there's not a whole lot of size difference, but there's definitely a mass difference here. He feels a lot heavier, and he's just a lot better quality. Much more posable, and just better. And he is one of the shorter ones because of his claws, because they use the plastic down there. So let me grab a different one here. Deluxe Canine. So again, about the same size, but he's got more plastic and he's got better accessories. He's actually got a gun, not a foot. And he's got a shield. So, there's that. Then they had they're Megas at the time is what they were called. Now they're called Voyagers. They were $15. I do have one. But I don't have a Voyager current Combiner Wars. But I can show. This is a Voyager from then versus a Deluxe now. And you see, there's a lot more mass to him. And I don't have this, but they also had an Ultra class at $20. So they had this great breakdown with their figures, and these weren't, for the most part, like we get now, where we get essentially two different scales at the same time. You look at the RAD line, and you got your deluxe class, and then there's the bigger class, I think, but you get the same character in those two and the Legends line. So you sit there and well, I don't need Optimus in 3 different sizes. I'd prefer to have Troopers smaller, and mini bots in the smaller scale, and then Troopers in the deluxe scale, and then Leaders in the larger scale. But Beast Wars had 4 different scale points, and there was tons of the basics, a lot of the deluxes, not so many Voyagers or Megas, and a few of the Ultras. The Ultras were kind of getting more into the harder to find category, which was great, because you only get a few Ultras in a line, and those guys were your leaders or commanders, or in Rampage's case, berserkers. And then they also had in the same category there was the combiners. They had Triberticus and Magnaboss, who were combiners in the same line. They came in the box. They were $20. When they were individuals, they're almost in between basic and a deluxe. But when they combined, they were ultra. So that was really cool, because we got these figures just right off the bat. You didn't have to go hunt for the combiners. Now that wasn't true for all their lines back then, but for that one it was. So and unique molds. Almost everybody had a unique mold. You had the repaints, of course. Every Transformer line is going to have repaints. You had your Tigertron repainted from Cheetor. You had Dinobot repaints into Grimlock, and on and on and on. But there were so many more unique molds that you overlook that real quick. And people like Man-Terror, like I was saying, he was one of my favorites. He never got a repaint, so he was unique. I'd say about a quarter of the figures got repainted back then. So that was really cool. Now every figure gets repainted 1,000 times, and that's just stupid. So yeah, price points. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that it was better back then because they were cheaper. I'm saying it was better back then because they had the different price points and they were able to break it down. Hasbro has clearly gone the way of, well, we make more money off deluxes, so we're going to cancel everything else. And that's why, like, the generations for the longest time were only deluxes. There was no basics, there was no Voyagers or Ultras. Eventually they started getting into the Voyagers, and now we're getting some leader class figures, but ultimately they really shouldn't have gotten away with that breakup. And they kind of have it now with the Legends, then Deluxes, then Voyagers, then Leaders. But yeah, it it's taken them a long time to get back to this point. Look at the Classics line. They only had Deluxes and Voyagers. There was nothing else in that line. And then Universe added Ultra Class back, but no basics. There was no basics. They did Legend scale, but again, it was crap. So ultimately, I think they really lost a few steps from then to now, and I do think the two big reasons for this is one, they realize the collectors and the kids are going to buy it anyway. And that is not a good mindset for them to be in. Because, they'll release crap after crap after crap, and we'll buy crap after crap after crap. It's worse. It's worse than, I've ranted about, other reviewers reviewing crappy figures, saying that they're good so that they can pretty much get a paycheck. And I hate that. Of course I hate that. But Hasbro's worse because they just stamp the logo Hasbro on it, and that's better than any review. Because there's so many people out there that love Hasbro, that will buy everything Hasbro. I hate Hasbro at times, but at the end of the day, I'm going to buy everything in the Combiner Wars line because that's the person I am, and it's more of an addiction than it is anything else. So, and that's really horrible. That they could just slap their name on a piece of shit and call it good, and people are going to buy it. And also the other issue is the fact that they're treating Combiner Wars and Generations in general as a secondary line. If they were put a little bit more focus on it, we'd probably get a little bit better figures. I mean, Hasbro hasn't been crap forever. Just look a few years back with Prime. That Prime line was the main line, and it blew everything that we're getting out of the water. Don't tell me that it's not, because you look at Combiner Wars Megatron, which turns the tank. He looks good. He looks great. And he's a fun toy. And you compare him to the Prime Megatron, who looks like he just walked right off the screen, and he looks like he's about to tear some shit up. And you compare the two, there is no comparison. That Prime Megatron is awesome with the slight grooves in the plastic to add the extra little paint details to make him look metal and shiny without him actually being all silver painted. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was a great figure. I love that figure. Another great example would be the what's his name? Dreadwing and Skyquake. That was an amazing mold. Better than any Voyager we're getting now. You put that mold next to Silverbolt, and you're gonna sit there and scratch your head like, this is the same company? And that's because they're using it as a side line. They don't care. Somebody's running some water upstairs. But they don't care about what we get. they're just throwing it out there because they know we'll buy it. And, it's like, the rising cost of plastic. That's just the industry of the world. It's a very stupid concept. Like, incredibly just stupid. I can't get behind it at all. Side rant real quick. Those people in California that are so excited that they got the minimum wage raised gradually over the next few years to $14 an hour, they're just idiots. I'm sorry, they're idiots that they're so excited about that, because at the end of the day, what that's going to do is cause the consumer that has to pay their wages to raise their rates. And then once they raise their rates, then things like home rentals and apartment rentals, they're going to have to raise their rates to match the rise in rates of everything else around them. Gas prices will go up because the gas employees have to get paid more, so the price of gas will go up, and thus will cause the cost of heating to go up, which will cause the cost of renting a home or apartment to go up. So all the costs around you are going to go up, and your pay is going to go up, but you're still paying the same amount of money. It's like, when you're a kid, your dad sits there and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you $5 to mow the lawn." And you're like, "Oh, sweet." So you take that $5 and you go buy a hooligan figure. That's me. And now, at my job, I work 1 hour, and now I can go buy a Voyager. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. But at the same time, it's like, do those... you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I make more money, and I'm buying a more expensive figure, but does that make me any happier than I was as a kid with making the $5 and buying the hooligan? You know what I mean? Or I guess a better analogy would be like if I want to work half an hour or like 15 minutes and go buy a Legends figure. If I went did something like that, then about half hour. If I worked a half hour and then left and went and bought a Legends figure, would I be as happy as I was when I mowed the lawn for 30 minutes? No. Because the Legends figures are crap in comparison to the old figures. Oops. Over the chair, sorry. And ultimately, there's no excuse. That's my big thing. There's no excuse. There's no reason for them to put an Alpha Bravo and Silver Bull in the Superion, aside from them wanting to sell a different mold. There is absolutely no excuse whatsoever. They might be sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, so that we don't have to make all new molds, later on down the road, recycle them." But no, there's no excuse. Yes, the plastic quality or plastic cost has gone up, but the materials to build the molds, the different abilities to build molds and sculpts and designs, the price on those has significantly went down. Now, I used to collect Warhammer figures, and a long time ago they used to do the sculpts. Like, they would sculpt the model and then scale it down, and there you go, there's your model. Now their costs always went up, but their costs, like the price of their figures always went up, but the cost of making the figures went down, because rather than paying somebody to sit there and painstakingly sculpt something, they would program something in the computer and the laser would cut it out of the plastic, and that would be your design. You got these people. I'm not one of these people because I'm not tech savvy, but you got these people that can sit there with a 3D printer and hit a button and they can print out a gun, for Transformer. So there's no reason that Hasbro can't adapt some of those technologies, and they probably have, is the thing. So the cost of making these toys has gone down. I promise you, it's gone down. It doesn't go up when it comes to, and if it's going up, then they're doing something wrong, because the longer any business is in business, you work more efficiently. So the more efficiently you work, you cut out certain things in the assembly line. You're like, okay, hey, do we really need to spend an extra 5 minutes over here polishing the plastic if we can make the plastic polished from the beginning? So, no, no. So, rising cost of plastic is one thing, but cost of the molds, no. I know molds cost a lot of money, but there's other ways to make these molds at this point. I'm completely off my rocker here, out of my element. But my point remains is that there's no excuse for what they're putting out. There's no reason for what they're putting out. This is just turning into another Combiner Wars rant. I'm sorry, but I mean that's the truth of the matter. And back then they had so many great designs that came out, and so many great figures that were coming out over and over and over again. You got K9 here. I'm trying to find this little stamp, but they put out these great figures, and now they're not putting out such great figures anymore. They really lost their way. Is what I think. And maybe it's because they moved the factory. Because you notice all the older figures were made in China. All the newer figures are Vietnam. So maybe that's part of the problem. Trying to find his stamp. I remember the good old days where they just put it on the inside of the leg. Maybe it's because of that. I don't know. But ever since they did that, their figures started getting more and more hollow, and I don't like that. But it's I think one of the main problems that I'm having is, and a lot of other people are having, is that we keep thinking of Combiner Wars as the only line, because we look at the R&D line and we walk right by and we don't even pay a second notice, not realizing that that's actually the main line. And Combiner Wars is just a subline. I think if they really wanted to, they could definitely change Combiner Wars into a main line, or Generations into a main line, and just make that thing awesome, just like they did with Prime. And I may not like the movie, the Age of Extinction movie, and I may not collect the toy lines anymore, but the original movie toy line and the Revenge of the Fallen toy line were awesome. I love those toy lines. They were great. Now they're not so good. Age of Extinction was just a joke. And to answer everyone's questions, yes, I probably will be picking up the Age of Extinction Dinobots with G1 heads. Yeah, made in Vietnam. So maybe it's because they moved the factory, and maybe that's the problem. I don't know. But ultimately, I miss those days. I miss the days when there was one main line rather than a bunch of sublines. I miss the days when there was a good show to watch on TV, and it hasn't been that long since Prime, so I'm missing Prime. Animated, as much as I didn't really fully like the show, it was an enjoyable show. R&D is unwatchable for me. I can't watch it. So I don't know. Maybe we're just expecting too much out of Hasbro from a subline, the stepchild of the actual Transformers franchise at the moment. So maybe that's what we need to do is, maybe they're just testing the water to see if maybe there's still interest in it enough to get it going. And I don't know if they keep making figures like this now. I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling now. Yeah, there's my rant of the week. Real brief. As far as third party then and now goes, they're great examples of what you can do with the proper engineering. Yeah, their figures are expensive, but if Hasbro were to release a let's say Warbotron Brawl, he would probably be in at least the Voyager class price point. And then with the amount of plastic, probably more like a leader class. So they're not horribly overpriced, but they are very well engineered, and they're getting a lot better with as they go. But the ever present problem with third party companies is, who the hell are they? Who the hell really is are these people? Because you might get so mad at one third party company and say, I'm not going to buy any of their product ever again, say like X Transbots. And then you turn around and you're buying something maybe like KFC, and then you kind of start reading in between the lines and you find out KFC and X Transbot are like this. We all know they use the same factory, but not entirely sure if they're the same people. Warbotron and Generation Toys have pretty much said, hey, yeah, we're the same guys. And it's like, then why are you using a different subline? A different name of the company. I would really love to see everyone out there, just be like, okay, let's be honest. My Gigapower, the Gigapower Snarl that I had, there's part of me that sits here and thinks, he shares a lot of aesthetics that Warbotron has, lots of the line works and stuff like that. So maybe they're the same company. But then there's the issue of like, okay, well tomorrow, how many of these companies are going to still be here? Because Daka Toys that made this Chronos figure, they're done. Don't even think about that. They're done. Are they completely gone? Probably not. They probably switched over to a different name and they're pretending to be a better company. Hell, maybe they're Gigapower. Wouldn't that be a kick in the ass? So it's like, I love third-party figures. They're expensive. Don't get me wrong there. And I think probably the biggest problem then and now with third-party companies is then, before, when they first started making their own figures and not just upgrade kits, the first few figures were very simple to transform, simple engineering. Now I think that some of these companies are going way over the top. Let's look at X Transbot's Apollyon. They made him so complex. And stop when you guys sit there and say, well, they made him complex because he's a gun that turns into a Megatron, and they just wanted to make him look more accurate. No, they're just over-engineered him. That's what X Transbot tries to do. There's other companies out there that just does worse. Make Toys is notorious with over-engineering a figure. They don't need it to be that engineered, and I'm going into a different rant here, but that Megatron could have been a lot simpler to transform. I mean, look at Hegemon. He wasn't that bad. I mean, he was bad, but he wasn't as bad, and he held together a little bit better. Anyway. But yeah, like I said, Hasbro, from then to now, it's hard to compare because, like I said, I mean, we're talking about the subline. Because back then, when it's RID, and then Armada, and then Energon, and then Cybertron, while they were going, there was a subline there then too, and that was the Universe line, the original Universe line, which is just throwing new paintwork on old Beast War figures, Beast Machine figures, and Machine Wars figures, and calling them something new, and they weren't new or fresh. They were just repaints after repaints after repaints. I'm starting to get a trend here. Universe 2.0, there were a lot of repaints in there too. They had a few new molds, but a lot of those molds got reused right then and there. So, I don't know, maybe that's just par for the course for this. I've kind of diffused myself. That's how I feel. I feel like I've diffused myself here. So, I don't know. Anyway. What are your guys' thoughts? Have I found exactly what the problem with the new Combiner Wars lines is just a subline that they don't care about. And then he also asked to talk about the Masterpiece, which are, I mean, there's no compare. The only thing, in my opinion, that you can compare the Masterpiece figures to is the G1 figures. You have to go back to G1. Nothing that Hasbro has put out in the last 20 or 30 years comes close to the Masterpiece lines. Some people might argue that the Masterpiece jets aren't quite right, but no, they're not. But still, the bulk of the line. Look at Sideswipe, look at Prowl, look at Optimus, look at Soundwave. All of those are miles above everything, and it's like, yeah, I love third party companies, but they still have a lot to grow to get to MP10 level. Vans Toys is probably the only one I can sit here and honestly say can give Takara a run for its money. Everybody else is just other people. They're not as good. Yeah, I'm gonna buy some of the figures as they come out. I'll try that Make Toys Seeker mold. Make Toys was smart. They'd start with Coneheads. They wouldn't start with the rest of the Seekers. If the Coneheads sell well, which they should, if people like the aesthetics of the figure, then people are going to be like, hey, we want you to do the rest of the Seekers now. But at least they'd get that initial sell for the people like me who would be happy with my Masterpiece Seekers, and we would be happy with Make Toys Coneheads. That's me. That's my thought. That's where they should start with that. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I guess that's it. Yeah. I can't think of anything else to say on this. But yeah, I think I diffused myself. I think that's why we're getting crappy figures. Because we're trying to make mountains out of molehills with this Combiner Wars line. They're not. They're not good, and that's because Hasbro doesn't care, and it's because it's just a sideline. That maybe one day they will realize, like, hey, you know what? There's more money in this because of the collectors, and then they'll make some sort of figures that are like Masterpiece figures. I mean, that's where the collectors really belong. It's Masterpiece line. Yeah, there's the Chug collectors, but if you really think about the Chug line, no matter where you go, it's always been a sideline, and it's just never going to be as good as a main line. So, there you go.